Hello friends and welcome to our channel. Today's video is about this child lived in a bubble for 13 years. And the reason is… But before we start, please make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell and smash that like button. We really appreciate your continuous support. David Philip Vetter was born on September 21, 1971 in Houston, Texas. His parents are David Joseph Vitter and Carol Ann Vitter. Their first daughter, Catherine, who was born in 1968, was healthy. However, in 1970, Carol gave birth to their second son, David Joseph Vetter, who suffered from a deficiency of severe joint immunity and died after 7 months. In 1971, Carol became pregnant again, and doctors said that a newborn would carry the same disease by 50%. This disease mostly affects males and makes their body so weak that a simple virus such as a cold or any bacteria can be deadly no matter how simple. The parents refused to abort the fetus and decided to take the risk. Doctors have confirmed that if the child is ill, his sister can donate bone marrow to him in order for him to lead a normal life. Nonetheless, he will be placed in a sanitized, isolated bubble until his life-saving operation is performed. There were strict procedures to regulate the birth process. The doctors had to sterilize everything, including the air in the room where the operation would be performed. The mother also had to eat sanitized food in the few weeks before the birth and be kept isolated in a sanitized room. She was only allowed to communicate with others by phone. On David's birthday, his mom was wrapped in sanitized sheets. She said that the period was challenging for her. No one moved inside the room for 15 minutes before the birth. The air should have remained as still as possible to prevent any bacteria from moving in the air. Any small mistake will lead to the death of the newborn. Doctors had to isolate him immediately after his birth and protect him from all kinds of bacteria. The birth was successful, and David lived a normal life for only 20 seconds before he was transferred to an insulated plastic bubble. Doctors had to sterilize anything before he was brought there. Tests were done, and it was found that the infant had the same disease that killed the previous baby. Worse still, the test results showed that his sister was not a suitable donor. Her tissues were not compatible with David's, which put the doctors in real trouble. No one knew how to deal with the situation or how long David could withstand inside that bubble, especially since leaving it would mean inevitable death. Dr. John Montgomery did not hide that David was an experiment for him. The disease could be studied better through this child, especially since the rest of the children who contracted it died after several months while David is still alive inside the bubble. His family could only touch him with gloves integrated through the plastic wall of the bubble. That was so sad. Before David was born, doctors considered that the bubble would be a temporary dwelling for David to protect him until a bone marrow transplant. Still, David's tissue mismatch with his sister's tissue ruined all the plans. While David was in the bubble, the doctors encountered many unexpected everyday problems. For example, he was not able to use regular toothpaste. Doctors tried heating toothpaste to kill any bacteria in it, but it was no longer usable. He was using sodium carbonate to brush his teeth. He was not able to eat ice cream or cake or drink soft drinks like other children. The medical team struggled a lot for David to have a good life. When he was 3 years old, doctors expanded the air bubble and added a games room. The news reached the media and David's story was widely popular. Everyone stood in solidarity with the parents, including psychiatrist Mary Eddie Murphy, who volunteered to spend time with the child and check on his psychological state. Mary says that David's stay in that secluded place greatly affected his psychological state, as he, like all children, wants to play, run, ride a bike, and eat ice cream and sweets. That same year, David had another sterile bubble at his home in Conroe, Texas. He was taken there to spend 2 or 3 weeks with his family. His sister was spending the night next to him. The two had a lot of fun, but what hurts David is that he does not enjoy the freedom like his sister. David did not know the real reason for staying there. He was trying to come out every single time, which prompted Dr. Raphael Wilson to explain everything to him. It was true that David was scared, but it encouraged him to stay in his bubble and not try to get out of it. On his 5th birthday, David tasted cake for the first time. He had other desires, including drinking Coca-Cola, but the doctors and researchers failed to fulfill his desire. Around this time, David became so famous due to the media, and many celebrities visited him frequently. As for his parents, they received a lot of criticism from society. Some believe that the abortion of the child was better for them than the life they lead today, while others say the parents exploit their son to conduct medical experiments. In 1977, David turned 6 years old. It was then that NASA stepped in for help. Researchers have designed a special wetsuit in which David can solely move out of that bubble. The agency spent $50,000 to fulfill David's dream of wandering outside the sealed bubble and playing with other children. The protective suit was taken to Texas Hospital for doctors to supervise David's exit from the air bubble. At that time, many media professionals came to the hospital. However, David was afraid of the presence of bacteria in the suit, and it took some time for the doctors to convince him that it was safe and sterile suit, and by using it, he would be able to gain some freedom. At last, David wore the suit and was unable to move away, much because the suit was attached to a special device to filter the air from bacteria. David played with the kids and tried many new things, but was not feeling comfortable and safe. David just felt safe in his bubble. He only used that suit about 7 times during his life. At the age of 7, David began studying. He was taught on the phone, and sometimes teachers would come to him. He had friends who visited him every day. Star Wars was his favorite movie. On one occasion, a local movie theater even organized a special screening for him. When he was 8 years old, doctors told him that he might live another 10 years in that isolated place because it would take a lot of time to find a cure for his illness. By the age of 9, the total amount spent to keep David's life was $1,300,000 US. The government has begun to reduce expenditures. At that time, Dr. Ralph Vision and Dr. William Shearer took the case. The two suggested taking him out of the bubble and injecting him daily with strong antibiotics. That was the last solution that could have been resorted to. Nonetheless, the parents preferred to keep their son in an isolated bubble instead of risking his life. In 1983, when he was 12 years old, there was new research in bone marrow transplantation. This research helped transplant the bone marrow with completely incompatible cells, making the sister's bone marrow suitable for David. Parents were persuaded to undergo the operation, and a convenient date was set. The surgery took place on October 23, 1983. David stayed for several months after that in the bubble until his condition stabilized. A few months after the operation, David fell ill for the first time in his life. His condition was so critical that the doctors had to pull him out of the isolated bubble. It happened on February 7, 1984. David was taken to a sterile room where his family members managed to touch him directly for the first time in his life. On February 22, 1984, David passed away. His last words were to Mary Jane, the psychiatrist, who told her, "I love you." His last wish was to taste Coca-Cola, but the doctors disagreed. After his autopsy, it was found that the cause of his death was Epstein-Barr virus, which was present in his sister's bone marrow. That virus caused many tumors to grow in his body. His body was buried on February 25, 1984. Many authors and filmmakers took inspiration from his story to make many beautiful works of art. Scholars have made use of this experience significantly in finding a cure for severe combined immunodeficiency. Thanks to David, hundreds of children worldwide have been saved, and doctors have a clearer picture of a bone marrow transplant symptoms. Every year, on his death anniversary, many donations are raised for a care center for children with immunodeficiency. Annually, approximately $200,000 US are raised. After David's death, his parents divorced. In 1988, his mother married journalist Kenneth DeMareed, who had covered her son's story from the start. His father founded an accounting firm and became mayor of Shenandoah, Texas, between 1988 and 2005. In 2016, a special exhibition was opened for David, where his toys and all his special items, including his air bubble and suit designed by NASA, are located there. There, a movie about his life story is shown over and over again. Thank you for watching. If you liked today's story, make sure to thumbs up this video, subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you won't miss any new stories.